Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. It's looking like a warm day ahead in Riverside, with the high expected to reach about 87 degrees before dropping to a low near 60 degrees tonight. Coming up on the show, we are digging into why the United States recently enacted steep new tariffs targeting China and several other countries. Then, we will investigate the potential consequences of Donald Trump's immigration policies, specifically looking at how they could worsen the ongoing shortage of essential healthcare workers nationwide. We have the analysis on these developing stories and more coming right up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We begin this morning, April 9th, 2025, with a major escalation in global trade tensions. A new, significant round of tariffs from the Trump administration went into effect overnight, sparking immediate reaction. For more on this, we turn to our news reporter, Ethan. Ethan, what exactly kicked in today?
Grace, it's a complex picture that unfolded at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Building on a 10% baseline tariff on most imports that, according to BBC News, started last Friday, April 5th, though it exempted key goods like pharmaceuticals and semiconductors, today saw the launch of much higher, country-specific tariffs. President Trump calls these reciprocal, targeting nations the administration views as having unfair trade practices or large surpluses with the U.S.
And these reciprocal rates sound quite steep. What are some of the key figures we're seeing?
They are indeed significant. ABC News and BBC News have reported some eye-watering numbers. China faces a cumulative tariff rate now hitting 104%. Vietnam is at 46%, Thailand at 36%, Cambodia at 49%, Taiwan at 32%, South Korea at 25%, Japan at 24%, and European Union countries are looking at 20%. NBC7 San Diego reports that the average rate across dozens of nations under this new structure is now around 29%. It's quite the tariff wall being built.
104% for China A. That's astronomical. Is that a flat rate on everything coming from China?
That's a great question, Grace. It's not quite that simple. Analysis from Perplexity API, drawing on various reports, clarifies this 104% is a asterisk cumulative SNIME figure. It seems to be the result of layering tariffs over time, perhaps a 10% here, another 10% there, then larger chunks of 34% and 50% added on. BBC News suggests a slightly different layering path to reach that total. Importantly, though, Perplexity API confirms there are exemptions. For instance, goods already in transit before today might be exempt until May 27th, so not every single Chinese import faces the full 104% immediately.
So the administration is really doubling down. What's President Trump's argument for these dramatic moves? Is he trying to tariffy the situation?
Nice one, Grace. Well, according to reporting from both ABC News and BBC News, President Trump argues these tariffs are essential tools. He says they're needed to fix long-standing trade imbalances, shield American industries, boost the U.S. economy, and essentially pressure other countries into negotiating trade deals more favorable to the U.S. He seems confident, with ABC News quoting him saying, "I know what the hell I'm doing," and claiming countries are lining up to make deals.
He keeps using that word reciprocal. Does that mean these rates directly match the tariffs those countries place on U.S. goods?
That's where the term gets a bit fuzzy. Analysis via Perplexity API suggests it's not a strict tit-for-tat matching of tariff percentages. While the administration says it aims to mirror the overall burden U.S. exporters face abroad, including non-tariff barriers, these specific percentages, like 104% for China or 20% for the EU, don't directly align with existing tariffs imposed by those countries' U.S. goods. It seems more about the U.S. perception of trade deficits and unfair practices, aiming to balance the scales in a broader sense, rather than a simple percentage match.
And how has the main target, China, responded to this latest volley?
Swiftly and strongly, within hours of the U.S. tariffs activating, China retaliated. ABC News and NBC7 San Diego report China hiked its own duties on U.S. imports significantly, raising its retaliatory tariff rate to 84%, up sharply from a previous 34%. The Chinese Finance Ministry, cited by ABC News, called the U.S. move a mistake and urged dialogue, while their foreign ministry warned the tariffs fuel inflation and undermine global stability, vowing to take resolute measures.
What about the other countries hit with these new rates, the EU, Japan, South Korea?
Based on Perplexity API's analysis today, they seem to be in a holding pattern, expressing concern, but not yet announcing specific retaliatory tariffs. The European Union has indicated it's preparing countermeasures if talks fail. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam have voiced disappointment. It appears they're hoping for negotiations but keeping retaliation on the table.
This sounds like it could really roil the economy. What's the immediate impact, and what else is on the horizon?
The immediate market reaction hasn't been positive. ABC News reported major stock market losses following the tariff announcements. Critics, as cited by Perplexity API, worry these tariffs will raise costs for U.S. consumers and businesses, worsen inflation, and potentially slow economic growth. Looking ahead, NBC7 San Diego reports President Trump plans to announce tariffs on pharmaceuticals very shortly, a sector previously exempt. And BBC News notes that, starting May 1st, just 22 days from now, even low-value goods from Hong Kong and mainland China will face import duties. So, this trade story is far from over.
Indeed. A complex and rapidly evolving situation, Ethan. Thank you for breaking that down for us.
You're welcome, Grace.
We're turning now to a critical issue facing the U.S. healthcare system, a severe worker shortage that some argue is being made worse by certain immigration policies. Joining us to break down this complex situation is our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, thanks for being with us.
Happy to be here, Grace.
So, just how much does the U.S. healthcare system rely on immigrant workers? Is it a significant number?
It really is, Grace. The dependency is quite substantial. A study recently published in the JAMA Network Open, which the Long Island Press highlighted just yesterday, found that over 1 million non-citizen immigrants work in the U.S. healthcare sector. That includes people in all sorts of roles, from doctors and nurses to vital support staff.
1 million workers, That's certainly not insignificant. Does this reliance vary across the country?
It does. That same JAMA study pointed out regional differences. For example, right here in New York, non-citizens make up nearly 13% of the healthcare workforce. So in some areas, the reliance is even more pronounced.
With that context, how do specific immigration policies, particularly those associated with the Trump administration, potentially worsen these shortages?
Well, analyses, including some synthesized by Perplexity API, point to a couple of key mechanisms. First, there were policies that tightened restrictions and reportedly increased denial rates for important employment visas, like the H-1B visa. That specific visa is often used to bring in highly skilled, foreign-trained professionals, think doctors or specialized nurses. Making those visas harder to get makes it tougher for hospitals to fill critical, high-skill positions.
Okay, so that affects bringing new people in. What about workers who are already here?
That's the other major concern. Perplexity API estimates that over 350,000 non-citizen healthcare workers currently in the U.S. have precarious immigration statuses and could be at risk of deportation. This includes people with temporary protected status, or TPS, and those under the DACA program A Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The Long Island Press also reported on fears that increased deportation efforts could essentially pull hundreds of thousands of essential workers out of the system almost overnight, creating immediate staffing gaps.
That sounds like it could cause a real crisis within the system. What are the predicted consequences for patients and hospitals if these shortages worsen?
The potential fallout is serious, creating a rather unhealthy situation for healthcare access. We're already seeing strain. The American Healthcare Association reported that nearly all care facilities already had open positions. According to the Long Island Press, stricter immigration policies could pour fuel on that fire. The New York Times and KFF Health News have specifically warned about the impact on elder care, an industry heavily reliant on foreign-born workers. Disruptions there could mean less access to care for seniors and potentially higher costs for families.
And it likely doesn't affect all areas equally, right?
Exactly. Perplexity API analysis points out that rural and underserved communities, which already struggle to attract healthcare workers, often depend heavily on immigrant professionals. Reducing that pool could severely limit access to basic health services in those areas. Experts cited by the Long Island Press warn of ripple effects system-wide. Think overcrowded ERs because hospitals are full, or patients stuck in hospitals longer because there's no staff available for home care after discharge. It puts immense strain on the entire system.
It sounds incredibly complex. Are these immigration policies the only factor driving the shortage?
No, it's definitely a multifaceted problem, as Perplexity API's work makes clear. Widespread worker burnout, especially after the immense stress of the COVID-19 pandemic, is a huge factor. One study showed nearly half of healthcare workers reported burnout back in 2021, leading many to leave the profession. Plus, there were pre-existing shortages driven by an aging population needing more care and an aging healthcare workforce heading toward retirement, nearly a third of RNs, for instance.
So burnout and retirements are playing a big role too.
Absolutely, and add to that challenges in domestic recruitment. Perplexity API noted that in 2023, nursing schools had to turn away tens of thousands of qualified applicants simply because they lacked faculty or clinical training spots. Issues around wages and demanding working conditions also make it hard to attract and keep domestic workers in some essential healthcare roles.
With all these overlapping factors, a burnout, retirements, recruitment issues, and immigration policies, can we actually pinpoint how much of the current shortage is directly due to specific policies?
That's the tricky part, Grace. Trying to diagnose the exact impact is challenging. While studies, like the JAMA one cited by the Long Island Press, show how many workers are at risk due to their status, they generally don't isolate the causal impact of, say, a specific visa rule change versus the impact of pandemic burnout. Reports from KFF Health News and the New York Times describe the disruptions, but quantifying the distinct contribution of policy versus other factors is difficult. Perplexity API suggests more complex research, maybe statistical modeling controlling for other variables, would be needed to really untangle it definitively. As of now, that specific, isolating research seems limited.
A very complicated picture, with significant consequences for healthcare across the country. Chloe, thank you for helping us understand the different facets of this issue this morning.
You're welcome, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. A top Pentagon official has clarified that the U.S. military does not possess the legal authority to conduct drone strikes against drug cartels within Mexico. Assistant Defense Secretary Colby Jenkins stated during a Senate hearing that while President Trump's designation of certain cartels as foreign terrorist organizations opens doors for broader strategies, it does not automatically greenlight direct military actions like drone strikes. This counters some public speculation, including comments made on social media. Jenkins confirmed, however, that surveillance operations involving manned and unmanned flights over Mexico are ongoing to gather intelligence and support counter-drug efforts. Across the pond, King Charles III and Queen Camilla are marking 20 years of marriage. Their journey has been complex, beginning with an early romance interrupted, followed by Charles's tumultuous marriage to Princess Diana, during which his affair with Camilla continued, famously leading Diana to remark, quote, "There were 3 of us in this marriage." Public scrutiny intensified after scandals and, tragically, following Diana's death in 1997. The couple eventually married in a civil ceremony on April 9, 2005, and have since navigated their way to public acceptance, with Camilla taking on significant charity roles supporting Charles. In New Mexico, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has declared a state of emergency in Albuquerque due to a surge in crime, mobilizing the National Guard. Starting mid-May, 60 to 70 Guard members will assist local police with support tasks like traffic control, securing crime scenes, transporting prisoners, and assisting with drone operations. This aims to free up officers amid concerns over violent juvenile crime and the fentanyl epidemic, following a request from the city's police chief. While local officials requested the aid, the ACLU has expressed concerns about the potential militarization of law enforcement. Toy maker Lego has officially opened a major factory in southern Vietnam, which it says will operate without adding carbon emissions to the atmosphere. The $1 billion facility in Binh Duong province relies entirely on renewable energy, primarily from thousands of rooftop solar panels and a nearby dedicated energy center. Expected to create 4,000 jobs, the plant has achieved high environmental certifications and is part of Lego's commitment to sustainability, aiming for full carbon neutrality by early 2026, while serving growing markets in Southeast Asia. And finally, a significant ruling on press freedom here in the U.S. The Associated Press has won a legal battle after the White House restricted its access to key events, including Oval Office meetings and travel on Air Force One. This occurred after the AP continued using the name, quote, of Mexico, instead of President Trump's proposed Gulf of America. A federal judge issued a 41-page ruling stating this viewpoint-based exclusion violated the First Amendment, emphasizing that the government cannot discriminate against news outlets based on their editorial decisions. The White House has been ordered to restore the AP's access. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King, with Claude Sonnet 3.7, Gemini Pro 2.5 Experimental, Gemini Flash 2.0, Perplexity Sonar Pro, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.